Hello everyone, Sorry here. Thank you so much for joining me for a Craft Roulette process video for episode 215. The parameters were birthday, petting zoo, scoop, and tabs. And I decided I would create my card drawing it because nothing was inspiring me with the craft supplies that I have to create a card. And I did have an idea in my head what I wanted to do. So I'm going to go through each step. I'm going to go through the drawing process, the coloring process, and putting it all together. And it's going to be a little bit longer, but I did speed up most of the pieces so that it's not going to be too long. The full time creating this video was probably almost 2 hours. And so being that it's only 13 something minutes, that's a good indication of how many spots have been sped up. So working with this, I really didn't know where to go with. And so as I was sitting there thinking about it, I had an idea that it would be someone just out and about with an ice cream cone, and they were being stalked by larger ice cream cones. I don't know what I was thinking. It was something that popped in my head, and I thought that it'd be fun to draw. And so I got my little character there holding an ice cream cone, and I decided to draw some simple bushes behind him. Now the bushes were actually just going to be abstract shapes, but then they turned out to look like bushes, which worked in my favor because now I have ice cream cones that can hide behind it. I will be trimming this down. You can kind of see the square that I drew, and I'm trying to position the main part within that square. I don't know exactly where I'll trim it off. So drawing outside of it gives me more room to play and cut and when I'm doing my final positioning. Okay, and now that the drawing has been completed, I'm now going to go over it again with my fine liner and just make sure things are a little bit smoother and cleaning it all off. I am not going to go exactly over the line. I will try, but sometimes it doesn't look as well as I thought. So when I'm going over it, I'm just going to kind of correct it. And this is actually a pretty simple process, and it's very satisfying in my opinion. It kind of really makes your image pop and polish it off a bit. I do need to work on my smoothing skills. I do find that my hand shakes a bit when I'm drawing, but either that's just the way it is and that's my style, or I have room to improve. And just clean that off. Okay, and so the pattern paper I'm going to be using just to bring in some color, which is, what did I say? Petting zoo. So those are the colors. I chose this one because I'm thinking petting zoos can have pigs, which is pink. There's lots of greens and blues in a petting zoo, for example, plants, grass, sky, and then the yellow. Well, that could be the sun, or it could be a chicken. I don't know, is there chickens in petting zoos? I'm not sure. Yeah, so what else fails? We'll say the sun, and of course brown, lots of brown in a petting zoo. So I'm also picking some scrap pieces of cardstock that I have in my stash that are similar to the pattern paper. So you can see I have some pink, and that's like a turquoise, teal, yellow, and brown. What I'm going to be doing is kind of creating a tab. If you think like a browser on a Windows machine or a laptop or things like that, or even a filing folder, where you have those tabs where one's higher than the others, the one that's active, that's what I'm kind of creating. So my brown one is going to be the active tab. It's going to be kind of like there's a picture inside this tab that you're opening up. And then the ones behind it are going to be the extra little color. So they're color coordinated tabs. And I did round the corners as best that I could without using a die or anything. And I'm just adding a little bit of glue and adding it behind, keeping the tabs that slightly lower than the brown ones. I was trying to get them to be about an inch long for each one to keep it consistent, but what happened was when I got the yellow one to the end, I realized that I really didn't like it going full across. I wanted it to be about a 1/4 inch off. So I pushed it back a bit, which makes the teal one shorter. So because I did that, then I'm going to slightly cut off some of the pink. Now this way of doing it is pretty challenging to make sure that everything is perfectly straight across because you're working with three colors that aren't connected in any way. You're just kind of gluing them one by one. So what I did was I had them a little bit higher and then used my paper trimmer to cut them down just the slightest, like maybe a 1/16 of an inch down. And now they are all straight across. Now the yellow one I did trim down a tiny bit more than the pink, like the rounded corner, you can kind of tell. So it does throw it off a bit, but once everything gets put into place, it's not going to be too noticeable. Okay, now for the coloring. This is the fun part. I did speed this up 8 times, so it's going to be going very fast and glitchy almost looking, but I decided to add it into this video so that we have a complete beginning and ending to this process. I will be focusing on the pinks, browns, and yellows for the ice cream, so that's my typical flavors I would associate when coloring. I'm going to be using the teals and greenies for the bushes, and I'm going to do one coat for all these colors first. And the gist of it is that I will know what color each thing is going to be so that when it comes time to shading, I just need to find the markers that match it. I'm trying to make sure that my bush in the back and the bush in the front are going to be completely different, but I still want them to be similar in the shades. And then I also need to make sure that I'm not introducing too many colors. So for example, I have pink, brown, yellow, and teal, but as you can see, my sweater and shoes are not colored yet. And I don't want to do them brown because the pants are brown. I don't want to do them teal because the bushes are teal, so I don't want them to blend. So the decisions are either do I make it pink, yellow, or do I really need to bring in another color? So that's why I will just do my base coat, at least in this time around creating. I'm going to add some nice yellow hair to this character. That's the same color as the ice cream, which I'm trying to create shading. It's tough when you don't have a stamp that is creating all the texture and everything for you, so you know exactly where to color. But I'm trying. I'm bringing in the dark colors just around all the edges. So when the ice cream when you think of a scoop of ice cream, there's that little ridge around it. I'm trying to do it around that, the bottom, around the top, and then sometimes there's indents and fluffs. I don't know. There's texture, and so I'm trying to think of all that and just make it so that's not flat. And I think it's turning out quite well. I'm quite impressed myself, even though I know a lot of this is going to be cut off, so all this work will be not even seen except for in this video. Next, I will be doing the texture on my waffle cone, and I'm using the darker shade for the little texture on the cone. And then I will use my mid-tones to create some shadowing along all the edges. I will take my colors blender and fill in all those little squares or the backwards L's and make squares. And that will push the ink a tiny bit away so that it's going to create more dimension. It's going to make it lighter in those areas. I will come back to that afterwards with a yellow or a white gel pen just around the corners on the left side to really make it look like a waffle cone. Now I'm just going to start filling in these bushes. These bushes are going to be very simple, but because they're large spaces, I decided to use the flicking motion so that it creates some texture as well as filling in the color. I will bring in a darker shade because I'm finding that I'm not getting that dimension that I like. It's pretty flat, which is fine if that's what you want. That is a nice style, but because I did the ice cream cones with such texture, it's kind of throwing it off a tiny bit. So I'll bring in the darker colors, and then I will bring in my mid-tones and lighter colors just to fill it back in. And I'll just go right over where the dark areas are. blending it out so that you're just creating more of a shadow, more dimension, so that the two bushes definitely are not looking like they're together. Now the outside of the bushes on the dark one, I did bring in a later, more of a green color, and that was just to give it some different color. It's not something I normally do, but sometimes I do like to bring in different colors just to see what will happen. That's one thing I love about just coloring, is playing with unique combinations, and sometimes you surprise yourself with what you can create. Other times you create really horrible combinations that no one should see, and you should never admit that they have been done. So I did decide to bring in another color for the sweater. And the reason I chose this blue is because that's the blue I'm going to be using for the sky when I start filling it in. There we go. So just a nice, very basic coat. I'm not doing any shading. I could have, I'm not going to, keeping it very plain of that grayish blue. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of texture, or shadow, sorry, around the bushes and the cones, just so that they're creating that distance. Okay, so I've cut that off. I did take some time trimming it. So I would do one side, then the other, and I really made sure that I positioned it perfectly. It wasn't a blind cut, because you put so much work into a picture, a drawing and coloring. You don't want to just blindly cut, or you might not get the result you want. The project is Happy Birthday. So I am just going to handwrite Happy Birthday on this tab. This is going to be the birthday tab. And I used a white gel pen to do this. And now I'm just going to go over the whole image, giving some highlights. And this is where I also add my highlights to the cone on the left side of each piece. And it creates the complete texture of this cone. There we go. I decided that I was going to use my glaze pen for the eyes so that I can actually do some nice white dots for them, and they're not so dark. I like the eyes are almost like glee. This person is so happy with his ice cream cone. There's just so much joy, and I love how I was able to capture that. I kind of wish, because I created a story for this, I kind of wish that the ice cream was all over his face. It would have been really cute, but the expression says more than enough. To finish it off, I did add some little bling to the corner there. So there we go. Birthday card. I have petting zoo colors. That's not flamingo. That's pig, dirt, sun, and grass. And then I got the scoops of ice cream and the tabs. So there we go. That is card for episode 215. I did post this on the Facebook group if you want to check it out. I created a small little story after creating this card. Usually how that works is sometimes I'm inspired to create a story and I just think of one on the fly. They're not professional. They don't have a purpose. They're just an expression of my imagination, and sometimes I just love to share some more creativity. So if you want to check that out, it is on the Craft Roulette Facebook group. If you're not familiar with Craft Roulette, it is a game show that happens almost every Friday, and they roll a wheel to select random parameters, and they have guests that will create a card live, and then we all have opportunities to create cards for winning prizes. Sound confusing? I will put all the information in the description box below so that you can read up on it and hopefully join in the fun. I hope you have a great day. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.